We made fun of my husband at a party. Who would have thought it was just a bunch of silly jokes? One of those nights where you let yourself get carried away by laughter and wine. But when David stood up and said that everything was over for good, the silence was so loud that I felt like I was breaking inside. Does it sound exaggerated? Maybe, but let me tell you how we got there. My name is Laura, and I've been married to David for 7 years, a man who, if I'm honest, is nothing like the typical romantic comedy husband. He's quiet, reserved, almost always in his own world, while I'm the complete opposite. Talkative, impulsive, and, well, a bit sarcastic. That night we were at Clara and Miguel's house, our longtime friends, at a gathering that seemed harmless. You know those casual parties where everyone arrives dressed comfortably, but somehow they end up bringing up the most uncomfortable topics? Well, this was one of those. There were Clara and Miguel, always the perfect hosts, making sure no one had an empty glass in their hand. There was also Hugo with his "look how crazy I am" humor, and Paula, who had that annoying ability to laugh as if every joke was the funniest in the world. And then there was us. David, in his classic blue shirt, yes, one of those he always wears, and me, who had drunk enough to feel a little wittier than usual. The night started well. Music, food, the typical gossip about people we didn't even know well. And then someone, I don't even remember who, suggested a game, tell something curious or funny about the others. And this is where things started to go south. David was the first to be the target of the jokes, something small at first, like his way of ordering the same thing at every restaurant. "What's wrong, David? Afraid to leave your comfort zone?" Miguel laughed, and Hugo, of course, didn't miss the opportunity to add, "It must be because the last time he tried something new, he ended up asking for bread to get rid of the taste." Everyone laughed. I did too, and although I noticed that David didn't say anything, I didn't think much of it. But then Clara jumped in and let loose one of hers. "Always with those shirts, huh? If you ever arrive wearing something different, I promise I'll throw you a parade in your honor." At that moment, I should have realized something was wrong, but I didn't. What's more, I continued the game. I know. How could you do that, Laura? But at that moment, it seemed so innocent. "Or we'll make a statue of you, David, the man who wore something different." David smiled, but it wasn't his smile, it was tense, as if he had put it on to fit in. And although everyone continued laughing, there was something in the way he put his glass down on the table, something in the way he looked at me, that left me frozen. I think everyone has had that feeling at some point. You're in the middle of something normal, laughing, enjoying yourself, and suddenly something changes. You can't pinpoint exactly what, but you know something is wrong. Well, that's what happened that night. After the jokes, David got up with the excuse of, "I'm going to get some air." And he said it so calmly that if I didn't know him, I would have thought he really needed a break. But I know him. When David gets that quiet, something is not right. "Is he okay?" Clara asked, as if. "Yeah, sure," I said with a smile. "You know how he is, he gets a little overwhelmed and needs his space." I sounded so convincing that I almost believed my own lie. I waited a few minutes before following him to the patio. I didn't want it to seem like I was chasing him, but I also didn't want to ignore that feeling I had. I found him out there, leaning against the railing, looking at the city lights as if he were solving some great mystery. "Everything okay?" I asked, trying to sound casual. David took long enough to answer that the knot in my stomach tightened even more. Finally, he looked at me out of the corner of his eye and said, "You know this isn't funny to me, right?" Boom. Just like that, without beating around the bush. I didn't know what to say because, and this hurts to admit, I knew exactly what he was talking about, but I didn't want to give him the satisfaction so easily. So I tried to take it lightly. "David, they were jokes, we were all playing. You know we don't mean it." "All or you too?" Ouch! That hit me harder than I expected. Why? Because he was right. I had laughed too. I had also played along. And now that I think about it, I was one of the ones who laughed the most. "You're exaggerating," I blurted out. Damn defensive instinct. "They were just comments. I don't know why you're taking it so seriously." David let out a short laugh, but not one of those that are funny. This one was bitter, as if what I had just said had given him more reasons to be upset. "Forget it, Laura," he said, shaking his head. "There's no point in talking about it now. Let's go before the others start asking." I wanted to stop him, to say something, anything, to fix it, but nothing came out. David went back inside as if nothing had happened. I stayed there on the patio with the cold breeze hitting my face and that feeling of emptiness growing in my chest. Something was wrong, and I knew it. But instead of facing it, I did what I always do. I pretended it wasn't a big deal. When David returned to the living room, his energy was different. I noticed it immediately. There was something in his way of walking, in how he held his glass, that gave me a bad feeling. He wasn't angry, he didn't even seem upset. It was something worse. He was cold, as if he had already made a decision and there was no turning back. The group continued doing their thing, laughing and talking as if nothing had happened. Hugo was telling some anecdote. Tom and Paula were laughing exaggeratedly, probably because of the wine. Nobody noticed David right away. But then he did it. He put his glass down on the table with a subtle thud, but loud enough for everyone to look at him. "Can we talk for a moment?" he said. His voice was calm, but there was something in his tone that made the atmosphere change completely. Hugo tried to break the tension with one of his jokes. "What's up, old man? Another round of jokes? Because I have some new ones, and this time you're going to like them." But David didn't laugh. "This isn't going to be a joke," he said, looking at everyone. "I just need to say something right now. Let me explain something about David. He's not the kind of person who seeks the spotlight. In fact, if he can avoid it, he will. That's why when I saw him standing there in front of everyone, I knew something big was about to happen. I know that tonight has been fun for you, and that the jokes were just that, jokes. But for me, they weren't, and I'm tired of pretending they were." The silence that followed was awkward. Even Paula, who always had something to say, seemed to not know how to react. "David, it wasn't our intention," Miguel began, but David interrupted him by raising a hand. "I don't want any explanations. This isn't about you. This is about me. I'm tired of being the target of everything, of always being the predictable guy, the one who doesn't change, the one who's easy to attack because he never says anything. And tonight was the last straw." I looked at him, waiting for him to look at me, but he didn't. In fact, he avoided looking at me completely, and that was what hurt the most. Then he said it. "Everything is over. Forever." That phrase landed like a brick in the middle of the room. No one said anything, because what could you say to something like that? Even the background playlist seemed to have suddenly turned off. "What do you mean by that, David?" Paula asked, clearly uncomfortable. He sighed, and for a moment I thought he was going to soften his words, but he didn't. "It means I don't want to be a part of this anymore. Not these jokes, not this dynamic, not even this relationship." And there it was. He didn't say it directly, but he implied it strongly enough for everyone to understand. "David, please." I tried to say something, but my voice sounded weak, as if it weren't mine. "No, Laura. Not anymore." And with that, he turned and walked out of the room. What had just happened? When David left the room, I felt like the air left with him. Literally no one knew what to do. Not even Hugo, the guy who always has something to say, could crack a joke. "Well, that was awkward," Paula said, breaking the silence with a voice that sounded more nervous than casual. "What happened?" Miguel asked, looking at me as if I had all the answers. And there I was, standing in the middle of the living room with everyone's eyes on me, while I tried to process what had just happened. What could I say? I had no idea why David exploded like that. I also didn't understand what he meant by "everything is over." Because honestly, I didn't know. "I'm going to talk to him," was all I could think of to say, even though deep down I had no idea what I was going to say to him. "Laura, I don't think now is the time," Paula said, in her "I know relationships better than you" tone. But I couldn't just stand there pretending everything was okay. So I left. When I got to the patio, he was gone. There was a cold breeze that made me realize how quickly the temperature had dropped that night. I looked around, hoping to see him leaning on the railing like before, but he was gone. I went back to the living room, trying not to look as shaken as I felt. "He's not out there," I said, although I didn't know why I felt the need to inform them. Do you think he was serious?" Clara asked, but her tone wasn't one of curiosity, but of concern. "Of course, he was serious. I saw it in his eyes." "I think it's best we end the night," I said, trying to sound firm. "Thanks for everything, but I need to find David." Miguel nodded, although everyone seemed just as uncomfortable as I was. Hugo was the only one who tried to lighten the mood. "I'm sure he's just angry and needs time. He'll come back, you'll see." But what if he didn't come back? When I got home, there was no sign of him. His car wasn't in the garage, and he didn't answer when I called. I sat on the couch, staring at the phone as if I could make it ring with my mind. Everything was too quiet, and that silence hurt. Hours passed before I finally saw the note. It was on the kitchen table, written in his neat, small handwriting. It didn't say much, but enough to make my heart sink. "Laura, I need time to think. This isn't something I can keep ignoring. I'm tired of being someone I'm not to make other people happy, even you. I don't know when I'll be back, if I come back. David." I don't know how long I sat there, reading that note over and over again. Maybe it was minutes, maybe hours, but one thing was clear. Something had changed between us, and I wasn't sure if we could go back to what we were before. The next day, I woke up with a silly, almost childish hope. I thought that maybe he had come back while I was sleeping, that he would be on the couch with that gray blanket he always uses, watching some action movie we've seen 1,000 times. But the couch was empty. His car was still missing. And the note, well, the note was still where I had left it on the table, like a reminder of what I had lost. And so the days passed. The silence in the house was overwhelming. Sometimes I even caught myself holding my breath, as if making noise could break something else. I looked at his things, his favorite mug, his toothbrush, the blue shirt he wore that night. And everything seemed to shout the same thing at me: he's not here anymore. When you're alone, you have a lot of time to think. And that's what I did. I thought about every word I said that night, every joke I made as if it were harmless. I thought about all the times I laughed at him instead of with him. I realized something that hurt more than anything else. I hadn't really listened to David in a long time. I always assumed he was okay because David never complained, never raised his voice. But now I understand that his silence didn't mean he was okay. It meant he was bottling things up. On the third day, I texted him. I couldn't call him again. I felt like I was pushing him further away. "David, I'm sorry. I know this probably doesn't change anything, but I needed to say it. I was wrong. I hurt you. And the worst part is I didn't even realize how much. I'm here if you decide you want to talk." Hours passed, hours where I stared at my phone as if I could will it to ring with my desperation. Finally, it vibrated. "Thanks for saying that. But I need more time." It wasn't the answer I expected. But at least it was something. And although I was relieved that he hadn't closed the door completely, I also understood that this wasn't the time to force anything. That night, I sat on our bed and looked around. Everything seemed the same, but I knew it wasn't. This wasn't just an empty space. It was the result of a disconnect that I had let grow for too long. David was right. He got tired, not just of the jokes, but of something much bigger, of being a shadow in his own life. And I realized that I had taken something from him that I should never have touched: his dignity. That's what hurts the most. Sometimes when you love someone, you forget that you can also hurt them. We feel safe, untouchable. We think our words don't weigh so much because they come with affection. But that night I realized that even the smallest jokes can be knives if you throw them too many times. I don't know if David is coming back. I don't know if there's anything I can do to save what we had. But I know this: if I ever have the opportunity, I will never be the same person. Love is not just wanting someone, it's seeing them, hearing them, acknowledging them. It's making sure that even in the most difficult moments, that person knows they are safe with you. I failed at that, and now I'm paying the price. So, if you're watching this video and thinking of someone you love, someone who has always been there for you, please do me a favor. Stop, look at them, listen to them. Ask them if they're okay, because if I learned anything that night, it's that even the most patient people have a limit. And sometimes, when they get up to tell you that everything is over, it's already too late to fix it.